time I make an attack, I've got to remember, I've got to do the demoralization value. This is where the Germans are right now, up at 13 demoralization points. The way I'm tracking it, and I think this is what's meant to be done, is this is going to be the ones, this is going to be the tens, hundreds, thousands, etc. Just on these supply tracks. Maybe less than optimal, because these look very much like headquarters unit flags, but, well, at least it's functional. Alright, where are we? I just moved the French for their Plan 17 attack. They're just, you know, launching all along this line. They have to make attacks everywhere here. They've got to push forward with their 6-4 infantry. I threw some cav in there as well. We've got kind of this annoying little space here where an attack's got to be made. That's just horrendous. But across the line, this is going to be a bloodbath. Up here, the French don't have to attack and didn't have to move as close. I kind of fudged the commands, looked up to make sure. These guys definitely didn't have to attack, but I'm not sure about some of these, whether or not they're going to have to come in. But next turn, this is turn 3 right now. That's the 6-4 French infantry. Next turn, no additional French come in. So their 4-4s are never going to be thrown into this attack, which in a sense is kind of weakening the attack, because if I could throw everything in, it would be kind of potent. There's some guys who are kind of lagging. They're not able to make it up there, but they're trying their hardest. This is not a good attack down here coming out of Mulhouse. Up here, the Belgians had to pull back to Antwerp. A couple of guys here at Namur couldn't do it. I think I pretended some French were Germans. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I should be able to get there. The French are blue, and that looks kind of gray to me. Not really, but it definitely looked different than the Belgians. But they have to get as close as they can to a line here. And then once they're attacked, they're able to do stuff. But they can be sealed off and destroyed up there if I'm not careful. I've got to get some, make sure there's an anchor there. I'm going to actually move the French cav to that kind of position, just stretching this out a little bit more, trying to provide some protection until the British can get up and take their side of the line up here. Right now they're not mobile. I got a lot of attacks to do. I'm probably not going to go into any detail on any of them. I'm just, you know, I'm going to come back and give you the report, because there's a lot going on and it's painful. But this should be a very, very unpleasant situation for the French to have to make these attacks. Alright, lulls. This guy here is the reinforcement for the French for this turn. I forgot about him. He came in down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He has an extra movement point. Remember, he's able to do column movement. Whether or not he actually... He's got nowhere to go, though. Whether or not he actually is allowed to move, whether he's mobilized or not, I don't know. It seems to me if he's already marching, he should be mobile. If he's able to arrive as a reinforcement, he should be mobilized already. I just kind of fudging it there again. Alright, let's see how these attacks end up. Well, I want to point out a problem situation. The First Army started out here. Not a lot of places it can advance to. I could get it here. But I put it here so that I can get more of this line in. Well, everybody here actually was in supply from the Second Army, so I will drift him down here. But he can't go any further. He's not able to extend his march, and his movement's going to be kind of ugly. It costs 2 to go through that kind of broken stuff, and wooded rough is nastier. So he's not really going to be able to get very far. Let's see. He's got a 1 penalty for getting these guys in supply. These poor guys are going to be at half strength. And they're going to be crossing a major river, which should have them again. And doubles the counterattack. No choice in the matter, really. I had to attack somewhere. Uh-oh. So... we're going to have 4 strength points, counterattacked by 15, 30, 90. Yeah, that's not going to go very well at all. Mulhouse was a particularly bad situation for the French. Well, that was very bloody and very ugly. You can see the French didn't gain anything. The Mulhouse units got destroyed. But elsewhere, running along the line, that's the same position everything was in. They crunched in hard. He chased an engineer back out of there, retreated. The losses taken on the fort, but it was only 4 losses on the fort, I think. The French consistently took much, much greater losses. It's very painful to attack because of that ×3 counterattack multiplier. You just can't face anything like your strength and expect to come out okay. And, well, the Germans are at 33 demoralization points. The French are now at 96 after that. Yeah, you need thousands for it to matter, so we're not too worried about that. But boy, this was bloody, and you know what? We got to do it again next turn. Over here as we slide this forward. Alright, so here we are on the German turn 4 of August. Some reinforcements. They were allowed to move their 5 and 6 strength point infantry at this point, so and their engineers finally, so that they started to build up their lines. I didn't push into these hexes. I think it's nastier to force the French forward even more into southern Belgium here. But I am set up. Well, I don't know if I'm going to make this attack. This is a weak unit. It's got some defensive terrain with the woods, though. And it, again, may be better to force them to attack. But I am going to hit this fort and drive these cav. Up here, we drove the French cav back. I actually fought one, and it was a 1-point loss on each side. And I ignore the Belgians. They can't actually do anything, from what I can tell here. The restriction upon them is, let me see where it is. All Belgian units must move into one of these hex sites during 3rd of August. They cannot move to these locations during, then they must move. They must remain in those 3 hexes until they're attacked. After they're attacked, the player regains full control. They could counterattack if I get close enough. I'm not close enough. I'm only close to this hex. They could conceivably attack from that, but I think they got to move out first. So I'd rather just cut them off. This forces the English to push forward as they historically did, just as the French are losing ground. Kind of a nasty situation, unless you want to lose the Belgians, which probably is even worse. They would be a permanent loss if they get fully cut off, so there's very good incentive to get those English up there, which they can try to do this turn. For Liège itself, well, there's even more troops facing it now to complete that siege. I'm kind of on target there, I think, time-wise. The other troops kind of lining up. I'm going to push these cav out of there, try to get as much of Belgium, northern Belgium, cut off as I can, but I can't push too hard, so those English are going to get in there. Part of the problem is outrunning supply lines. I moved my headquarters up, and here we got 1, 2, actually I can't even, oh no, there's no zone there, 3, 4, and now I'm suffering. There's another headquarters here though, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is how I supplied those units. 1, 2, 3, 4 I can supply up here. And that only matters for attack. It's not winter time. Defense, I can spend supplies anyway. I'm probably not going to conduct any attacks down here. No real reason to. The French are going to do their own damage there. But up here, I definitely want to try to clear my path as quickly as I can. Point-wise, oh boy, you know, in terms of supply points, the Germans are fine, but the French are beginning to suffer some losses, and I may have to start shifting some points over. The 2nd, 4th Army down below 30. You know, I mean, spending enough for these big attacks is really, really painful. And I've got to do that again. And I'm going to be pretty much out of points at the end of, you know, when Plan 17 gets called off. Well, it's not turning out to be a very good turn for the Germans. They didn't manage to break this fort. They've got it down to really one strength point. I'm using a strength -1. I probably ought to just use a strength 1. It's easier to see what's going on. This one's down to a strength 1. They weren't able to take Liege. Their push forward was somewhat successful up here. I forgot to move this cav at all. Wonder what they were up to. Chased away the French cav. I've got to push forward and help defend that flank of the Allied armies. And obviously I have to bring the Brits up. No attacks any further south. I didn't hit this unit, which I had some, decent chance at. But most of the rolls were pretty bad. I mean, we were seeing -1 or -2 to the die roll, but situations where, I don't know, 30 strength points attacking 1, and they'd each take a loss, or they'd each take 2, or whatever. Not with 1, obviously, because the ×3 table only gets you up to 1. But, yeah, it's very, very bloody to attack. One thing that I had been very worried about, which was all the sort of mechanical aspects and complexity in the game, really aren't there. It's not that tough. I was very frightened about that. But honestly, it's no worse than, say, a Great Battles of the American Civil War type game in terms of keeping track of the hits. The truth of the matter is it does come down to a strength point game. It really does. You pretty much can make change wherever you want. I'm sure there's some pathological situations where you actually do lose a strength point from it, but it's pretty minor. And it's a fairly simple system to keep track of the losses on. It's just a little different from most. It does mean that not every unit has a hit point marker on it, which is kind of nice for something that's a strength marker game. On the other hand, you could just use lots and lots of core markers with numbers on them, but that would be hard to see. So I think this is actually a fairly elegant solution that works well, and I'm very glad of that because that was one of my big worries. Calculating out the combat results, you get pretty used to the terrain effects that are going on, and that too, it doesn't seem to be a problem. You may make a mistake, not look something up correctly, whatever, but it's a war game. You can screw up all over the place. Well, we'll move on to the Allied turn, and it's moving along kind of nice. It's going to be a heck of a long game, though. All right, French Plan 17 continues. Along the line here, I'm not even really shifting up too much. Trying to keep hammering in this direction right in here, but I've extended the line up into the Ardennes. We'll see how it goes. I may have to shift some supply points around too. Well, I moved some from the 4th through the 3rd and down to the 2nd, basically a 10-point shift there, I think. What I couldn't do is get them from the 5th. I needed to move that up into place to supply all the units that are attacking. The 5th is where I really wanted to get them from. That's the one guy with sufficient supply. And absolutely nothing good has come out of Plan 17 so far. I definitely want to call it off, and luckily I can at this point. The French army has just suffered tremendous losses here. Stripped away, the southern area completely destroyed. Now that didn't have significant support. I could barely get any supply at all to any of those units. But along here, just losses have been on kind of the 10-to-1 basis, or close to that. Sometimes only 5-to-1, but still just terrible. Had to throw additional units in just to have any reasonable firepower at all. And, I mean, I'm going to suffer the same losses for attacking the units, so I might as well throw in more units. I like that aspect. That really feels World War I-ish. We're going to lose a lot of people anyway. Let's throw more in. You don't end up losing more, though, the more you commit, which feels a little strange. That was always something I liked in the old SPI or even the Rand game, which followed it, was the densely packed forces did suffer more. La Grande Guerre sort of covers that. I don't feel like this does. Here, because it's a straight firepower table over there, it is what you're facing. Of course, what you're facing is just terrible. The defender being tripled is just this tremendous advantage. You never want to attack. Plan 17 forces you to attack. The Schlieffen plan does not, but if you want to win the war, you've kind of got to make some ground, right? And if you want to win with the Schlieffen plan itself, you have to get very close to Paris. So, it's an interesting system. There's no question about that. I like the attritional aspect, that you're trying to wear the other guy down by by killing enough of his men that his national will falls, essentially. I do really like the way that works in this. Let's take a look at those casualties. That's what the French have lost in pieces so far. In terms of demoralization points, and only from pieces are they paying anything. They haven't lost any territory yet. They're at, what, 181. The Germans are here at 60. They've faced basically no resistance yet in Belgium. Now, the Brits here are at Mons, and that could be quite a fight coming ahead. That's the powerful BEF units, and the game represents them with these 9 strength units. In a sense, I would kind of like to replace them once they start taking losses, because they will never come back up beyond 7 strength points. I think that would be legitimate to swap them out, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to load this one up. We're ready to go into the 5th turn of August. Taking it slow here, but you know, it's tough to fit in and just play something big like this operational solo. There's so many pieces and so many attacks, and I'm bent over counting the numbers and everything and all the attacks, and that'll happen with any you know, kind of heavier real war game, as opposed to, say, the strategic stuff that I tend to generally favor. Even with the tactical stuff that I like, I break it up into lots of little pieces so that I'm not bending over and playing it all at once. These are bigger little pieces, though, because, you know, you have to do your attacks, your movement and then your attacks all along the front. You can kind of take a pause in between. You can mark things with the tweezers, but I don't know, my old back isn't as good as it used to be. Anyway, up we go.